The laugh cut through the courtroom like broken glass, sharp, mocking, completely devoid of remorse. A 17-year-old girl stood at the defendant's table, handcuffed, orange jumpsuit wrinkled from weeks in juvenile detention, and she was laughing. Not nervous laughter. Not the kind that comes from fear or anxiety. This was deliberate, performative. A show of defiance aimed directly at the judge sitting 10 feet away. Judge Judy's pen stopped moving. Her eyes lifted from the case file. And for 3 long seconds, she just stared. The girl kept laughing, head thrown back, like this was all some kind of joke. Then Judy spoke, and her voice carried a weight that made everyone in the gallery sit up straight. 30 seconds later, that same girl would be crying, begging, broken. Before we dive into what happened, if you're watching this from anywhere in the world, drop your location in the comments. I'd love to know where you're from. And if you want more jaw-dropping courtroom moments, hit that subscribe button. Now, let's get into this. The case was supposed to be straightforward. Juvenile court transferred to Judge Judy's jurisdiction through a special arrangement with the family court system. The defendant's name was Ashley Morrison, 17 years old, blonde hair pulled into a messy ponytail, face that still had teenage softness to it, but eyes that looked decades older. She'd been charged with vehicular manslaughter and driving under the influence. The victim was a 23-year-old nursing student named Kayla Chen, driving home from her hospital shift at 2 in the morning when Ashley's car ran a red light going 70 in a 35 zone. Kayla died on impact. Ashley walked away with minor bruises. That was 8 weeks ago. Since then, Ashley had been in juvenile detention awaiting trial. Her parents had hired an expensive attorney who'd managed to get the case moved to civil court for the wrongful death lawsuit Kayla's family had filed. That's how it ended up in front of Judge Judy. The criminal case was still pending, but this was about damages, about accountability, about whether this 17-year-old girl understood what she'd done. The courtroom that morning was packed. Kayla's family sat in the front row, her mother, father, and younger brother. All 3 of them looked exhausted. The kind of tired that comes from grief that hasn't had time to settle yet. Kayla's mother held a framed photo of her daughter in her lap, nursing school graduation picture, big smile, whole life ahead of her. Ashley entered through a side door, escorted by 2 court officers. The handcuffs weren't necessary for civil court, but given the circumstances, nobody was taking chances. She shuffled to the defendant's table, her attorney, a middle-aged man in an expensive suit, already seated and waiting. Ashley sat down without looking at Kayla's family. Didn't glance their direction once. Her own parents sat 3 rows back. Her father wore a business suit, jaw tight, staring straight ahead. Her mother dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, though she wasn't actually crying. Just the performance of it. Ashley didn't look at them either. Judge Judy reviewed the file one more time before looking up. The courtroom settled into silence. This was it. We're here for Chen family versus Ashley Morrison. The plaintiffs are seeking damages for the wrongful death of their daughter, Kayla Chen, who was killed when the defendant ran a red light while driving under the influence of alcohol and marijuana. Ms. Morrison, you're 17 years old, is that correct? Ashley's attorney started to answer, but Judy cut him off. I asked her, Ms. Morrison, are you 17? Ashley shrugged. Yeah. Yes, Your Honor, Judy corrected. Another shrug. Sure, yes, Your Honor. Already the tone was set. Judge Judy made a note on her pad. Mr. Chen, you're here on behalf of your daughter. Can you tell me what happened on the night of March 14th? Kayla's father stood slowly. His hands shook as he gripped a small notebook. Our daughter was driving home from her shift at St. Mary's Hospital. She was a nursing student, working nights to pay for school. She was 3 months away from graduating. She called us around 1:45 a.m. to say she was leaving work and would be home in 20 minutes. We always asked her to call, so we knew she was safe. His voice cracked. He took a breath and continued. At 2:03 a.m., we got a call from the police. They said there'd been an accident. They said Kayla's car had been hit by another vehicle that ran a red light. They said she didn't survive. Judge Judy waited, giving him space. We went to the hospital. They let us see her. Our daughter was gone. Just like that. 23 years old and gone because someone decided to get behind the wheel when they were too drunk and high to even see straight. He sat down. His wife reached over and squeezed his hand. Judy turned to Ashley. Ms. Morrison, do you understand what Mr. Chen just said? Do you understand that a young woman is dead because of your choices that night? Ashley looked at her attorney, who nodded slightly. She turned back to the judge. I guess. You guess? I mean, yeah, I understand. It's sad or whatever. The courtroom went completely still. Kayla's mother made a small sound, somewhere between a gasp and a sob. Her husband put his arm around her shoulders. Judge Judy set down her pen very carefully. It's sad or whatever. That's your response? Ashley shifted in her chair. I don't know what else you want me to say. It was an accident. I didn't mean for it to happen. But you did get in a car after drinking. You did that intentionally. I wasn't that drunk. The police report says your blood alcohol level was 14. The legal limit is 0.08. You were nearly double the legal limit. And you also tested positive for THC. Ashley rolled her eyes. Actually rolled her eyes in court. Everyone smokes. It's not a big deal. It became a big deal when you killed someone. It was an accident, Ashley repeated, her tone shifting toward irritation, like she was the one being inconvenienced by having to explain herself. Judge Judy leaned forward. An accident is when something happens despite your best efforts to prevent it. This wasn't an accident. This was a choice. You chose to drink. You chose to smoke marijuana. You chose to get behind the wheel of a 2-ton vehicle, and because of those choices, Kayla Chen is dead. Ashley's attorney jumped in. Your Honor, my client is a minor. She's been through a traumatic experience herself. The night of the incident, she was injured, hospitalized, and placed in custody. She's still processing. She seems to be processing just fine, Judy interrupted. What she's not doing is showing any understanding of the gravity of what she's done. The attorney tried again. With respect, Your Honor, Ashley is 17. She's not emotionally equipped to... At 17, she was emotionally equipped to know not to drive drunk. Let's not infantilize her. Judy turned back to Ashley. Ms. Morrison, walk me through that night. What were you doing before you got in the car? Ashley sighed like she'd been asked this 1,000 times. I was at a party at my friend Brittany's house. Her parents were out of town. We were just hanging out. Drinking? Some people were. Were you? A little. How much is a little? Ashley shrugged. I don't know. A few drinks, maybe 4 or 5. Over what period of time? I don't know. A couple hours? And marijuana? I had like 1 hit. That's it. And then you decided to drive home. My phone was dying and I needed to get home before my curfew. Judge Judy tilted her head. Your phone was dying, so you had to drive drunk? That's your reasoning? I couldn't call an Uber if my phone was dead. You could have asked someone else to call. You could have borrowed a friend's phone. You could have called your parents. Ashley laughed. Actually laughed. Yeah, right. Call my parents from a party where I'd been drinking? They'd kill me. Instead, you killed Kayla Chen. The laugh died in Ashley's throat. She stared at the judge, mouth slightly open. That's what we're talking about here, Judy continued, her voice cold and precise. You were more worried about getting in trouble with your parents than you were about the safety of everyone on the road. So you got in your car, drunk and high, and you drove, and you killed someone. Ashley's face flushed. It's not like I meant to. Intent doesn't matter. Dead is dead. Kayla Chen is never going to finish nursing school. She's never going to help another patient. She's never going to get married or have children or grow old with her family because you couldn't be bothered to make a responsible choice. I said it was an accident, and I'm telling you it wasn't. Accidents are unavoidable. This was completely avoidable. You had a dozen opportunities to make a different choice. You didn't take any of them. Ashley slouched in her chair, arms crossed. Whatever. That's when Judge Judy stood up. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She stood, placed both hands on her desk, and looked at Ashley with an expression that made the temperature in the room drop 10 degrees. Excuse me? Ashley's eyes widened slightly. I just meant... You just meant what? That this is boring? That you're tired of being held accountable? That you wish everyone would stop making such a big deal out of the fact that you killed someone? I didn't say that. You didn't have to. It's written all over your face. You think this is unfair. You think you're the victim here. Ashley's attorney stood. Your Honor, I really must object to... Sit down, Judy said without looking at him. He sat. She turned her attention back to Ashley. Let me tell you something about fairness. Fair would be if Kayla Chen got to go home that night. Fair would be if her parents didn't have to bury their daughter. Fair would be if her little brother still had his sister. That would be fair. What's happening to you right now? This is called consequences. Ashley's tough exterior was starting to crack. Her shoulders hunched forward. Her crossed arms tightened against her chest like a shield. You're 17 years old, Judy continued. Old enough to drive, old enough to make choices, but apparently not mature enough to understand that your choices have consequences. So let me make this very clear for you. She picked up a document from her desk. I've read the police report. I've read the toxicology results. I've read the accident reconstruction analysis. Do you know what they all say? Ashley didn't answer. They all say the same thing. You were speeding. 70 miles per hour in a 35 zone. You ran a red light that had been red for 4 full seconds. 4 seconds. That's not a yellow light you tried to beat. That's not a light that just turned red. You blew through an intersection at 70 miles per hour without even slowing down. I didn't see it. You didn't see a red light? It was dark. There weren't many cars. I didn't notice. You didn't notice because you were impaired, because you were drunk and high and had no business being behind the wheel of a car. Ashley's voice rose defensively. I've driven like that before and nothing happened. The courtroom went dead silent. Even her attorney looked shocked. Kayla's mother let out a strangled sound and had to be steadied by her husband. Judge Judy's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes did. Say that again. Ashley realized her mistake. I didn't mean, say it again. I just meant that one time isn't. You just admitted in open court that you have driven under the influence multiple times before this incident. Ashley's attorney jumped up. Your Honor, my client misspoke. She's under tremendous stress. She's under oath, and she just admitted to a pattern of reckless behavior that led to someone's death. Judy made a note on her pad. I'll be sure to forward that statement to the criminal court handling your case. Ashley's face went pale. Wait, I didn't. You did. And now we're going to talk about what happens next. Judy sat back down, her movements deliberate and controlled. Mr. and Mrs. Chen, you're asking for damages in the amount of $1 million, is that correct? Kayla's father nodded. Yes, Your Honor. Can you tell me how you arrived at that number? Kayla would have graduated in 3 months. She already had a job lined up at St. Mary's, the hospital where she'd been working. Starting salary was $65,000 a year. Over a 40-year career, that's $2.6 million in lost earnings. We're asking for less than half of that. The rest is for pain and suffering, for the loss of our daughter, for the fact that we'll never see her get married or have children or live the life she worked so hard to build. Judge Judy nodded. She turned to Ashley's attorney. Does the defendant have anything to say about the damages being requested? The attorney cleared his throat. Your Honor, while we acknowledge the tragic loss of life, we believe $1 million is excessive. My client is a minor from a middle-class family. Her parents are not wealthy. Such a judgment would be financially devastating. Not as devastating as losing a daughter, Judy said flatly. With respect, Your Honor, Ashley has her whole life ahead of her. A judgment of this size would what? Impact her future? Good. Maybe it will remind her every single day that her choices have consequences. Maybe it will make her think twice before she ever considers driving impaired again. She looked at Ashley, who was staring at the table, shoulders shaking slightly. Ms. Morrison, look at me. Ashley slowly raised her head. Her eyes were red. Do you have anything you want to say to the Chen family? Anything at all? For a long moment, Ashley said nothing. Then quietly, I'm sorry. You're sorry. Yes. Sorry that you got caught. Sorry that you're in trouble. Or sorry that Kayla Chen is dead. Ashley's voice broke. I'm sorry she's dead. I didn't want this to happen. But you did want to drive drunk. You made that choice consciously. I wasn't thinking. Exactly. You weren't thinking about anyone but yourself. Not Kayla, not her family, not the other people on the road. Just yourself and your curfew and your phone battery. Tears started rolling down Ashley's face. The tough act was completely gone now. I know I messed up. I know it was wrong, but I can't change it. I can't bring her back. No, you can't, but you can take responsibility. Real responsibility. Not this halfway apology where you're more worried about the consequences for yourself than the pain you've caused others. Ashley's attorney tried again. Your Honor, my client is clearly remorseful. Remorseful? Judy's voice cut like a knife. She laughed when she walked in here. She rolled her eyes when I talked about the victim. She said, "It's sad or whatever," when describing a young woman's death. That's not remorse. That's inconvenience. The attorney had no response. Judge Judy pulled out her judgment form. Here's what's going to happen. The plaintiffs have asked for $1 million in damages. I'm awarding them $1.2 million. Ashley's parents both stood up in the back. Her father's face went red. Your Honor, that's not— Sit down, Judy said without looking at them. They sat. The additional $200,000 is for punitive damages. That means it's specifically designed to punish the defendant for her reckless behavior and to deter her from ever doing something like this again. Ashley was openly crying now. I can't pay that. I don't have that kind of money. Then you'll get a job. You'll work. You'll spend the next 20 years paying off what you owe to the family whose daughter you killed. And every single month when you write that check, you'll remember why you're writing it. But I'm going to college. Then you'll work and go to college. Plenty of people do it. This will ruin my life. Judge Judy leaned forward, her voice dropping to something quiet and sharp. Your life isn't ruined. You're alive. You get to go to college. You get to have a career and a family and a future. Kayla Chen doesn't get any of that. Her life is ruined. Yours is just difficult. Learn the difference. Ashley put her head in her hands and sobbed. Judy continued, her voice steady and relentless. Furthermore, I'm ordering you to complete 500 hours of community service at St. Mary's Hospital, where Kayla worked. You'll work in the same unit she did. You'll see the work she would have been doing. You'll understand the lives she would have saved. You'll spend 500 hours thinking about the person whose future you destroyed. Your Honor, the attorney protested, community service is typically assigned in criminal court, not civil. I'm assigning it anyway. If you want to appeal, go ahead. But I'm putting it in the judgment. She made several more notes, then looked at Ashley again. You will also be required to attend victim impact classes every week for the next 2 years. You'll hear from families who've lost loved ones to drunk drivers. You'll hear their stories. You'll sit with their pain. And maybe, just maybe, you'll develop some actual empathy. Ashley couldn't speak. She just kept crying, her whole body shaking. Judge Judy turned to Kayla's family. Mr. and Mrs. Chen, I know that no amount of money will bring your daughter back. I know that nothing I can do in this courtroom will ease your pain. But I hope that this judgment sends a clear message. Your daughter's life mattered. Her death will not be dismissed as sad or whatever. It will be remembered. It will mean something. Kayla's mother spoke for the first time, her voice barely above a whisper. Thank you, Your Honor. Judy nodded. I'm also ordering the defendant to write a letter to you every month for the next 2 years. In that letter, she will detail what she's learned, how she's changed, and how she's working to make sure no one else ever has to go through what you're going through. You don't have to read the letters if you don't want to. But she will write them. She looked back at Ashley, who was still crying, her attorney with his arm around her shoulders trying to offer some comfort. Ms. Morrison, I want to be very clear about something. You're 17 years old. You made a catastrophic mistake, but you're still young enough to learn from it. You're still young enough to become a better person. That's a gift Kayla Chen doesn't have. She doesn't get to learn and grow and become better. Her story ended at 23 because of you. Ashley's voice was barely audible through her tears. I know. Do you? Do you really understand what you've taken from this family? From Kayla herself? I think so. No, you don't. Not yet, but you will. Over the next 20 years, as you work to pay off this judgment, as you complete your community service, as you sit in victim impact classes and write those letters, you'll start to understand, and it will hurt. It should hurt. That pain is how you know you're becoming a better person. Judge Judy signed the judgment form with deliberate strokes. This court awards the plaintiffs $1,200,000 in damages. The defendant is ordered to begin making payments of $1,000 per month starting 60 days from today. The payment schedule can be adjusted if the defendant can prove financial hardship, but the total amount will not be reduced. She looked at Ashley's parents in the back. And before you try to pay this on your daughter's behalf, don't. This is her debt, her responsibility. If you pay it for her, she learns nothing. Ashley's father started to object, but his wife pulled him back down. Additionally, the defendant is ordered to complete 500 hours of community service at St. Mary's Hospital within the next 18 months. She is ordered to attend weekly victim impact classes for 2 years. And she is ordered to write monthly letters to the Chen family for 2 years, detailing her progress and growth. Judge Judy banged her gavel. Court is adjourned. But she didn't stand up immediately. She looked at Ashley, who was still crying at the defendant's table, and spoke one more time. Ms. Morrison, you came into this courtroom laughing. You thought this was a joke. You thought you could charm your way through this or minimize what you'd done. You couldn't. And 30 seconds after I started talking to you like an adult instead of a child, you broke. That tells me something important. Ashley looked up through her tears. It tells me that underneath all that false confidence and teenage bravado, you know what you did was wrong. You know you destroyed a family. You know you killed someone who deserved to live. You're just scared to face it. Ashley nodded, unable to speak. Good. Be scared. Feel that fear. Let it motivate you to never, ever make a choice like this again. And 20 years from now, when you've paid off every penny of this judgment, when you've completed your service and your classes and your letters, you'll look back at this moment and understand that this was the day your real life began. The day you stopped being a careless child and started becoming a responsible adult. She stood. This court is adjourned. The bailiff called for everyone to rise. Judge Judy exited through the door behind the bench. The courtroom slowly came back to life, people standing, gathering their things, whispering to each other about what they'd just witnessed. Ashley remained at the defendant's table, her head buried in her arms, sobbing. Her attorney tried to comfort her, but she pushed him away. Her parents rushed forward from the back row, her mother wrapping her arms around her, her father standing stiff and silent behind them. Across the aisle, Kayla's family sat together. The mother still held the framed photo of her daughter. The father had his arm around his son. They weren't smiling. Grief doesn't disappear with a court judgment, but there was something in their faces that hadn't been there before. Acknowledgement, validation, a sense that someone had finally listened to their pain and taken it seriously. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited with cameras and microphones. Kayla's family came out first. They made a brief statement. We want to thank Judge Judy for taking our daughter's death seriously, for not letting it be minimized or dismissed. Kayla was a wonderful person with a bright future, and that future was stolen from her. We hope that this judgment sends a message to other young people. Driving drunk isn't a mistake, it's a choice, and choices have consequences. They didn't take questions, they just walked to their car, still holding together as a unit, and drove away. Ashley came out 20 minutes later, flanked by her parents and attorney. The reporters shouted questions. She kept her head down, face blotchy from crying, and said nothing. Her attorney made a brief statement about considering an appeal, but his heart clearly wasn't in it. They got in their car and left. The case made national news. Video clips of Ashley laughing at the beginning and crying at the end went viral. People debated whether the judgment was too harsh or not harsh enough. Victim advocacy groups praised Judge Judy for taking a strong stand. Defense attorneys criticized the punitive damages as excessive. But in the courtroom that day, none of that mattered. What mattered was that a 17-year-old girl came in thinking she could laugh her way through the consequences of killing someone. And she left understanding that she couldn't. 6 months later, Ashley was working 3 jobs. One at a coffee shop near her house, one doing data entry remotely, one cleaning offices at night. She'd enrolled in community college, taking online classes so she could work around her jobs. She'd started her community service at St. Mary's Hospital, working in the nursing unit where Kayla would have worked. The first time she walked into that unit, she saw a board on the wall. In memory of Kayla Chen, it read, with that same graduation photo. Below it were comments from patients and staff about how Kayla had helped them during her time there. How kind she was. How dedicated. How much she cared. Ashley stood in front of that board for 10 minutes, reading every comment, tears streaming down her face. Then she went to work. She wrote her first letter to Kayla's family 3 weeks after the judgment. It took her 6 hours and 4 drafts. She told them about starting her jobs, about her first day at the hospital, about seeing Kayla's memorial. She told them she was sorry. Really sorry. Not the hollow apology she'd given in court, but something real and raw and painful. She didn't know if they read it. They never responded. But she kept writing anyway, every month, like Judge Judy had ordered. The victim impact classes were harder than she'd expected. Sitting in a room full of people whose loved ones had been killed by drunk drivers, hearing their stories, seeing their pain. One woman talked about losing her husband and 2 children when a drunk driver crossed the median on the highway. Another man talked about losing his best friend the week before his wedding. Ashley listened to every story. She stopped trying to minimize what she'd done, stopped making excuses. She just listened and learned and slowly, painfully, started to understand the full weight of what she'd taken from the Chen family. 2 years after the judgment, Ashley was still working, still paying, still learning. She'd completed her community service and had voluntarily signed up for more. She'd finished her victim impact classes, but continued attending support groups for people dealing with guilt and trauma. She'd written 24 letters to Kayla's family. She never got a response, but she kept writing. In the last letter, she wrote something different. I used to think that night ruined my life. I was wrong. That night saved my life. If I hadn't been caught, if I hadn't faced consequences, I would have kept driving drunk. Eventually, I would have killed someone else. Maybe multiple people. Maybe myself. Judge Judy didn't ruin my life when she gave me that judgment. She woke me up. She made me see what I'd become and gave me a chance to be better. She ended the letter the same way she ended every letter. I'm sorry. I will always be sorry. And I promise I will spend the rest of my life making sure Kayla's death means something. She mailed the letter and went to work at the coffee shop. Another day of working toward a debt she'd be paying for years. Another day of carrying the weight of what she'd done, but she was carrying it. That was the difference. She wasn't running from it or minimizing it or making excuses. She was facing it head-on, every single day, doing the hard work of becoming someone worthy of the second chance she'd been given. Judge Judy never saw Ashley again after that court date. But she'd seen hundreds of cases like it over the years. Young people who thought they were invincible, who made catastrophic choices and then tried to laugh or cry or charm their way out of consequences. Most of them learned nothing. They paid their fines or did their time and went right back to the same behavior. But every once in a while, someone got it. Someone actually changed. In interviews afterward, when asked about the Ashley Morrison case, Judge Judy said something that stuck with a lot of people. You can tell a lot about someone by how they react when you hold them accountable. Some people double down on their excuses. Some people blame everyone but themselves. But every once in a while, you get someone who breaks, who finally sees themselves clearly. And those are the people who might actually become better. Was Ashley one of those people? Time would tell. But on that day in court, when her laughter turned to tears and her arrogance crumbled into understanding, something changed. Whether that change would last, whether she'd actually spend the next 20 years working to make Kayla's death mean something, remained to be seen. But Judge Judy had given her a choice. She could let this destroy her, or she could let it remake her into someone better. The easy path was to be destroyed. The hard path was to rebuild. And for the first time in her life, Ashley Morrison chose the hard path. The case became a teaching moment used in schools across the country. Students watched the video of Ashley laughing and then crying. Teachers used it to talk about consequences, about responsibility, about the real cost of impaired driving. Some students saw themselves in Ashley. The confidence that comes from never having faced real consequences. The sense that rules don't really apply to you. The belief that you can talk your way out of anything. Those students paid attention. Others saw themselves in Kayla. Young people working hard, building futures, doing everything right, only to have it all stolen by someone else's careless choice. Those students learned to be careful, to call Ubers, to take keys from drunk friends, to value their lives and the lives of others. And a few students saw themselves in both. Saw how easily you could be Kayla, victim of someone else's choice. Or Ashley, destroyer of someone else's life. Saw how thin the line was between those two fates. Those students learned the most important lesson. Every choice matters. Every single one. Years later, Kayla's family established a scholarship in her name for nursing students at her university. The criteria were simple: financial need, academic excellence, and a commitment to helping others. They awarded $5,000 annually to one student who embodied the values Kayla had lived by. Ashley Morrison applied for that scholarship in her third year of community college. She'd switched her major to nursing. She wanted to help people the way Kayla had wanted to help people. She wanted to honor the life she'd taken by saving others. She didn't get the scholarship. The committee felt it would be inappropriate given the circumstances, but she kept studying, kept working, kept trying to become someone who deserved to exist in the same field where Kayla would have thrived. She'll be paying off that judgment for another 15 years. Every month, without fail, she sends a check to Kayla's family. And every month, she remembers why. Not because a judge ordered her to, not because she'll get in trouble if she doesn't, but because Kayla Chen deserved better than to be killed by someone who didn't care enough to call an Uber. That laugh in the courtroom lasted maybe 5 seconds. The tears that followed lasted much longer. But the lesson, the real, deep understanding of what she'd done, that would last the rest of her life. And maybe that was the point. Judge Judy didn't just want Ashley to cry. She wanted her to understand, to carry the weight of her choices, to spend every day working to become worthy of the second chance Kayla never got. 30 seconds can change everything. 30 seconds of harsh truth can shatter false confidence and reveal what's underneath. And what was underneath Ashley's arrogance was a scared kid who'd made a catastrophic mistake and didn't know how to face it. Judge Judy made her face it, forced her to look directly at what she'd done and who she'd hurt. And in that moment, when the laughter died and the tears began, Ashley Morrison's real education started. The courtroom is where it began. The rest of her life is where it continues.